All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Cabinet meeting being held at Clacton Town Hall on Friday, the 25th of July. It's good to see you all, and hopefully, we can get through the business and everyone will have their say, and we'll have some good reports for people to actually listen to and see. Right, first of all, I'm going to go to apologies.
Thank you to Councillor Henderson. We've got apologies from the Leader of the Council, Councillor Mark Stevenson, who I spoke to last night, is quite unwell, and therefore the Deputy Leader is today chairing the Cabinet meeting, Councillor Henderson. Any other apologies, Ian?
Thank you, Chairman. I can also give apologies this morning from Councillor Jeff Bray, the leader of the Reform UK group. Unfortunately, he's unwell this morning as well.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you, Chief Exec, for the comments on Mark Stevenson. The next item, item 2, is minutes of the last meeting, pages 7 to 26. I move, and Councillor Scott seconds. All in agreement? Thank you. Item 3, declaration of interest. Any interest, members? I see no interest, so I'll then go on to item 4, announcements by the Leader of the Council. There are none.
Just to say, if I may, Chairman, just to say that I liaised with Councillor Stevenson. He didn't have any announcements to put today anyway.
Thank you. Item 5, announcement by Cabinet members. Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Just to bring to everyone's attention the fact that we have once again been recognised, our car parks have been recognised for their high standards, and 11 of our car parks have received the prestigious Parkmark Award from the British Parking Association. I won't list them all, they're well out in the public domain, but I would just like to thank our parking services and the team for their continued dedication in maintaining these high standards, and their work helps to make Tendring one of the best places in Essex to park with confidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. There are no other reports from Cabinet members, so I'll move to item 6, matters referred to the Cabinet by the Council. There are none. So I'll now go on to item 7, matters referred to the Cabinet by a committee, reference from the Audit Committee A1, proposed new corporate and housing complaints policy and adoption, pages 27 to 28. Councillor Baker.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Leader. I'm pleased to propose that Cabinet agree to adopt a new corporate and housing complaints policy as recommended to us by the Audit Committee. You may recall that at our last meeting, I mentioned that the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman and the Housing Ombudsman had recently consulted on having a single code across both their areas of responsibility. As a result, and in recognition of the different legal powers each hold, they agreed to produce 2 closely aligned codes. As a result of that decision, the Council looked to harmonise both the corporate and housing complaints policies to deliver those expectations of the closely aligned Ombudsman's codes, which resulted in this new policy being presented to the Audit Committee on the 26th of June, who agreed to recommend it to Cabinet, hence the report before us this morning. As you can see on page 27 and 28 of the agenda, my response to their recommendation is recorded. And I will read it out just so that we have it on record. I want to firstly say how grateful I am to have seen the proposal from the Audit Committee in relation to updating the Council's corporate complaints policy. The fact that the Tenants Panel and the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman have endorsed the new policy speaks volumes to me. We all strive for the best possible service to our residents, businesses and customers. So negative comments about the delivery of those services are not what we would like to receive. However, through acknowledging, reflecting on and acting on complaints, we can actually make positive changes that improve not only our quality of delivery, but our overall effectiveness. I've been the member responsible for complaints from our tenants and leaseholders for just over a year now, and only last month I presented the annual Housing Complaints Performance and Service Improvement Report to Cabinet, which included a self-assessment carried out against the Housing Ombudsman's Complaint Handling Code for the year 24-25. I am keen that this approach to complaint handling and using complaints to improve performance is further developed across the Council. This new reunified policy for complaints offers the opportunity to demonstrate continuous improvement by the Council. I urge Cabinet to approve its adoption and the approval of all the recommendations submitted. I am content to extend my role concerning complaints handling and oversight of performance from housing to all services. In doing this, I will obviously liaise with other portfolio holders as issues arise in their areas of responsibilities. The implementation date in the recommendations has been included to enable training and documentation to be prepared and delivered across the Council. This would avoid a rushed implementation if such a date was not identified. So the recommendations are there, Deputy Leader. Further to that, I will be having conversations in the next days and weeks as to the process and details that will be provided in order to monitor not only the number of complaints received, but ensuring our timely response to them. As I said, the recommendations are shown on page 28 and I commend them to Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker, and I'm happy to second that motion, that report. Any comments? No comments? Can I ask members, all in favour of that? Thank you. We now go to item 8, matters referred to the Cabinet by a committee, reference from the Community Leadership Overview and Scrutiny Committee A2, Community Governance Review of Clacton-on-Sea, Holland-on-Sea and Jaywick Sands, and it can be found on pages 59 to 100. And I'll go to Councillor Gina Placey.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Cabinet, I propose we accept the recommendation to increase the budget for the Community Governance Review to £68,000. This reflects updated costings, includes expert support from the Society of Local Council Clerks, and ensures we can deliver a robust, transparent consultation. This is about giving 40% of our district's population a voice in how they are represented locally. I so move the recommendation on page 61. Thank you.
Chairman, I'm quite happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Any comments? Yeah. Councillor Paul Honeywood.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as look at this, as say, already we've seen a rise in the cost of this. It's now risen to 68,000. Can I ask, assuming that this proposal goes ahead, what is the budget that has been set for this? And what is the timeline of expenditure on that budget, please?
Just before our finance officer comes in on this, I think just to mention, I think this is a really good report and a good bit of work been done by the Scrutiny Committee, and obviously we are supporting their recommendations, but I'll bring the finance officer in. Richard.
So for clarity, we're talking about the 68,000. Yeah. So that's the budget set aside so far. So based on the recommendation in item A5, so the initial 48,000 was set aside earlier on with additional funding added as part of the A5 report. It's a phased approach, so it's funded up to that delivery point, and then it will be considered. Anything further actions will be considered as part of the development of the financial forecasting budget over the rest of the year. If that's your question, Councillor Honeywood. So it's just the £68,000 for this initial stage phase of the process.
I may. So yeah, I understand that. So the first phase has risen to the 68,000. Obviously, assuming that the residents want to go with a town council approach, have we planned out the finance for going down that road, and is there a timescale for that?
Just for absolute clarity, the overall process of the review, which is a sort of primarily a two-phased consultation process, is envisaged now to not top 68,000. But 68,000 is proposed to be put in the budget and includes 5,000 contingency and a drawdown provision with the Society of Local Council Clerks. So as we sit here today, not taking into account any drawdown, we would envisage that the overall cost across all phases of the consultation would be £53,000. The first phase is going to be about half of that. So you're talking about £27,000 in the first phase, and the similar sort of amount for the second phase of the consultation. So we're not fully through the first phase of consultation, so we wouldn't have spent the 27,000 or so that I've referenced. But we're heading in that direction.
So just to get clear, you're saying 53,000 is the total cost?
The provision is the Cabinet is considering today is increasing the budget from 48 to 68, but of that £20,000, £5,000 is a contingency. So we've decided now to put a contingency in that wasn't there in the first place, and a further £10,000 is a drawdown provision for the Society of Local Council Clerks. So at the moment we haven't drawn down on that, so we may not draw down on that. We may draw down the full amount, but at the moment we haven't drawn down anything. So that leaves a £53,000, which is the difference between literally the 48,000 that was originally approved. Royal Mail charges and other charges have made that rise to 53. Divide that by two, because basically it's half and half across the two phases of consultation. That's where the money is being spent, and you end up at 27 or so thousand pounds. We're in that first phase of consultation. That first phase of consultation, as a rough estimate, I would see is costing about £27,000. We've not spent that fully at this point. Does that help, Paul?
Yeah, I can see where you're going. I was just looking at if we're going down the complete route, obviously it requires finance. So you've got to, I suppose, assume that people want a town council. If they don't, then obviously there's no finance. When they say no, it's the end of the subject. If they say yes, there's obviously going to be further costs. And what I was looking at is what would those costs be, and what was the timescale for those costs to be incurred, if you see what I mean. And that makes sense.
And it does, and that's why I say the 68 is across the totality of that whole process. And so we're in that first phase of consultation, and about half of the actual spend, not the drawdown, not the contingency, would be spent in the first phase of consultation.
If I may just, I think the other part of your question, if I may, kind of reading through between the lines, and if I got that wrong, so apologies, is that there is a further cost, and there is. And actually, this is doing is getting us through, taking us through a CGR. Then maybe actually you want that it may be that there is not a town council. There's one, there's two, there's three. And at this stage, of course, we don't know what those costs are, because having 3 town councils will be different to having 2 or 1, and indeed, of course, having none. So you have got the totality of a budget of 68,000 to see us through the process. The next phase will be is if council then say, yeah, well, of consultation, and then council say yes, then at that stage, of course, is there's the ongoing cost, which I think you're alluding to is this is not the total cost of the town council. No, it's not. This is just to do the process.
And I have to say, and I suppose I, like other members in here, being on a town council, I'll declare an interest, but if I was to look at this amount of money, which, as you know, Councillor Honeywood, democracy doesn't come cheap, and you're actually engaging with the public and making sure that we're listening to the public and getting that feedback from the public. But I think the gains at the end of this, if we go down that route, as I think other councillors on town and parish councillors will tell you, the rewards are greater than the amount of money that's been spent here to the residents. We've seen that. We've seen the proof of that around the district. That's why there's so many parish councils and town councils, because people like that local representation right down to community level. So I would say at this stage, yeah, we're not spending up to that 68,000, but if we do, I'd still say that's money well spent to engage with the public and to make sure that we get everything right and we get that feedback from the public going forward. Had a mover and a seconder, Councillor Baker, Councillor Placey moved, Councillor Baker second. All those in favour? Oh, and I just need to mention, because that wasn't mentioned, that the funding of this actually comes up, and I refer you to item 12A5 in the finance report, where the money's been referred and dedicated to this, to the formula for paying for this. All those in favour? Thank you. I now go on to item 9, matters referred to the Cabinet by a committee, reference from the Community Leadership Overview and Scrutiny Committee. A3, the Council's Crime Disorder Task and Finish Group concerning crime and disorder for violence and abuse, pages 101 and 114. And I call on Councillor Peter Cox to move the report.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. And in introducing this report, could I thank the members of the Crime and Disorder Task and Finish Group, and especially Councillor Carrie Doyle for her work and their work on an important and interesting topic. I'm happy to support those 8 recommendations that are on pages 101 and 102, which are being made to the Cabinet. And following Cabinet's acceptance, I'll invite officers to engage with our partners to take action to incorporate the recommendations into our plans and enact them for those matters that are directly within the control of the Council. There are some matters which lie outside of the Council's domain, and I will work with officers and our partners as to the best way that we can bring those recommendations to fruition. And yet again, I'd like to ask Cabinet to note the recommendations and also to note the response that I've made to those recommendations from what I think is a very, very important piece of work to deal with a very hard thing to deal with in terms of familial violence and abuse. And I think the work of that group should be commended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. And have I got a seconder?
Deputy Leader, I'm quite happy to second this item and just concur with everything that Councillor Cox has just said. 8 recommendations from the Community Leadership Overview and Scrutiny Committee of this Cabinet. It's obvious there's been a lot of work undertaken by the 6 councillors on that task and finish group to provide such a comprehensive report around familial violence, and they should be commended for doing so. And I completely agree with what Councillor Cox just said, and therefore I second. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. And I just want to say, I too believe this is a really, really good bit of work, and congratulations to the lead on that, Councillor Carrie Doyle, and the team for coming up with this. This subject, I've got to say, is a subject which is dear to me, and I'm really pleased that this amount of work's gone into this. It's really important, and thank you very much for engaging in that. Item 10, Leader of the Council's item, options for local government reorganisation in Greater Essex. And what I'm going to do is, oh, sorry, I didn't go back. Oh, sorry, on the last item, item 9. Sorry, all agreed? I'm just trying to shoot through something. Sorry about that, members. First mistake of the day. So I've got item 10, I'll read again. Leader of the Council's items, options for local government reorganisation in Greater Essex. And I'll move this report. So I'll read what the report is so we can get it online. The purpose is in readiness for the executive decision to be taken by Cabinet at its meeting due to be held on the 12th of September 2025 in response to the invitation from the Minister of State for Local Government and English Devolution to develop a proposal for local government reorganisation. It is proposed that Cabinet recommends to Council A, following an update to be provided by the Leader and the Chief Executive at its meeting on the 14th of August, Council considers the available information on the options for local government reorganisation in Greater Essex as they have been announced and formulated, and B, indicates its view on those options and the preference of the Leader based upon Council's previous decision to ensure that the District of Tendring is in the best possible position and the voice of Tendring and North Essex more generally is as strong as possible, recognising its opportunities and challenges. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to call for a seconder.
Yes, Deputy Leader, I will gladly second item 10. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gary Scott. I'm now going to refer this over to the Chief Executive because I know the Chief Exec and the Leader have spent a huge amount of time having meetings and discussions Essex-wide on this issue. I mean, the amount of hours they're putting into this. So I think it, although I've done one or two, I know they've got this firmly in their mind, and I'm going to allow Ian now to come in and report. Thank you, Chief Exec.
Okay, thank you. So I'll try and update you on where we are with LGR and also in terms of what this will mean going forward for the council. So first of all to say is that I was hoping for this meeting to have the report, which was the finance review, which was due to come on the 15th. So there's two different reports coming on the 15th and 18th of July. We haven't yet got those, so therefore I can't report what the outcome of those is. And obviously, in terms of making any recommendation to you about what the different options are and what the best option is, obviously the financial aspects of it is really important. If I can just sort of take you back to sort of where we're up to at the moment, though, Essex County Council effectively is leading on a submission to government, which was originally, I reported to you, was called 3.2, which was for us, I'll refer to us, not the whole of Essex, and what it meant was Malden, Braintree, Colchester and Tendring. Recently that has changed, and the Essex County Council are now recommending 3.4, which would put us with Uttlesford, Braintree, Colchester and Tendring. That has been made public in the last few days by Essex County Council, and that is going to be the form their submission on the 26th of September. Southend are leading on a submission for 5 unitary authorities, and that is still remains us with Braintree, Colchester and Tendring. All of those submissions, of course, are actually, whether we're with 3 or whether we're with 5, we're actually 4 or 6, because we will also be amalgamating with Essex County Council, because the disaggregation and the harmonisation of services are for all the district services, but also the county services, because not only will the district no longer exist, and nor will the county exist, which means that when they come together, we need to think about both in terms of the TUPE, the staff of Essex County Council, which we will have a proportion of in the new unitary. I say we, I mean the new unitary. So therefore it is very much worth thinking about, actually, it is not just Braintree, Colchester and Tendring, but it is Braintree, Colchester and Tendring and Essex County Council, although they're actually being called the 3 or the 5 in terms of the amalgamation of the districts. In the last few days, there has been another 2 submissions which have been proposed. One is by Rochford District Council, which does not put them with Southend, but puts them with Chelmsford and across the middle, more across the middle of the county. So that's a proposal for 4 unitaries. Their proposal, however, leaves us as Braintree, Colchester and Tendring alongside the Essex County Council. There's also a proposal coming forward from Thurrock Council now, and that's also for 4. So, and that would put, and that proposal, and this one we haven't heard the confirmation of this, but this is what has been, so far been discussed or proposed would be around us with a different configuration to the 4 from Rochford. But we've got to wait to hear what that will be in terms of confirmation of what Thurrock will come out at. So it is quite difficult to, we've had a lot of work gone into looking at the cases for 5, the cases for 3. You've had all member briefings, and there was only one a couple of nights ago where you've heard the latest position. And as I was only saying yesterday, since that on Wednesday evening, some of the financial information has changed again. The financial information which we're waiting for will not give you a perfect outcome in terms of 2 + 2 is 4 is the calculation. It won't give you the solution. It will be a political solution. It will be a political decision. However, you are not the decision maker, but you can make recommendations of what your preference is. Essex County Council is not the decision maker, it will be the minister. So likewise, they will actually make a submission, but likewise, they are not the decision maker. The minister is the decision maker. So any submission on the 26th of September will go to the minister will then look at that, however many submissions, and then decide on which ones to consult on. What they've done in Surrey, which is the recent one which is going on at the moment and is a fast track one, is that the minister looked at the different submissions, decided one was not viable for whatever reason, and therefore consulted on just 2 options of those submissions and went out to the public. We will be a statutory consultee, so will Essex County Council. I don't know, in answer to the question which we had at the Town Council last night, I don't know whether the town councils or parish councils will be statutory consultees. They will certainly be able to comment as a consultee, though, as will the public. The expectation is that the September the 26th will be the date with which we have to have the submission in. The ministers then will respond towards the end of the year. There will be a period of consultation, and the final decision as to what the configuration will be in early 2026. The Surrey one, and this is just literally, I've had a letter come out today, so if I may just sort of have a refer to that. The Surrey one is actually saying that and this is important for the election, as the government has maintained its ambition to create unitary councils in Surrey on 1st of April 2027 and in all other 20 other 2-tier areas in April 2028. The advice is explicit. There will be no district or county elections in Surrey in May 2026. There will only be elections for the shadow authority. It doesn't say what will happen to our elections. So in theory at the moment we have county elections next year because they're only delayed for 1 year. However, looking at the Surrey one as to whether that means that if we are then accepted on the programme and the order has been placed, then at that stage they will be or not. To be honest, it's anybody's guess, but we can see what's happened at Surrey. So I just sort of leave that out there, and obviously I'll update you as and when I know more. The mayor election will be in 2026, and that will be part of the order. I say will be, that's almost certainly. We haven't actually physically got the order to do it yet, but that's more or less we're accepting that as a given. And the preparation for having a new mayor for Greater Essex is also underway. And the leader of this council sits on a small working group which includes Southend, Thurrock and Essex as the upper tier authorities, and 2 other districts, looking at the different options and where that's going. There is a piece of work which we are very much a part of in North East Essex, which is being led by Lee Healy, the Deputy Chief Executive, which is preparing for a document which will go to every mayoral candidate. And it will talk about the opportunities and challenges for our area. It's really important that we early on identify what those are, because what we frankly want to do, and I say this in, and I know we're on public live stream, but I'll say this in public live stream, is we want to say these are the opportunities and challenges for our area, and we want the mayor to be well aware of those, and hopefully they'll become in the manifesto and their promises for delivery once whoever it is becomes mayor, whatever party. So therefore, we are preparing a document which just highlights our opportunities and challenges. There's also a piece of work which is going on, which is highlighting the attributes and the close working Braintree Colchester and Tendring has. And I only need to talk about the shared local plan which we've done, the work around the economic corridor, the historical part of our different history which we share, whether it be Roman, whether it be Harwich, whether it be Clacton with the oldest spear in the piece of spear in the world, the Clacton spear, whether it be a myriad of other things which we know right the way across, and also we share with Braintree as well. Our partnerships with the Alliance and with Health are so important, and also we're working closely with Ed Garrett and Laura Taylor-Green about making sure those are not going to be lost. Whilst we're going through local government reorganisation and there's devolution, there is also the health is being reorganised in the ICBs, and we are also talking to the leaders of health to make sure we don't lose those partnerships and the important work, because whilst we do all this internal, what's the shaping of local government, those services we deliver mustn't be lost, and those partnerships mustn't be lost, because they are supporting some really vulnerable families, young people, the work around suicides and reducing suicide rates, and the myriad of other work around economic growth, economic development to create those opportunities. So that's not being lost. So that's where we're up to in terms of the LGR. I think I'm less definitive than I was hoping to do today. However, by August the 14th, this is almost teeing up to be able to, I'll give an update at the beginning of the item at council on anything, and it will have changed, I know that, by the time we go to council. There is, one of the fundamental though questions will be for you as members in council, if you want to agree to make a recommendation of which business case you support, if you like, will be 3, yes, inevitably is small and therefore has got as a community base. 5 is 5 unitaries is small and a community space with 3 councils. It's the 5 and the 3 the wrong way around, isn't it? With three councils coming together plus Essex, having 3 unitaries is a big area, and there's likely to be a less of a cost. The key is though is it less of a cost, or actually are we committing a new unitary to failure because of the costs of adult social care and children's services in Tendring? And as I said earlier, the indications are that there won't be some kind of perfect sum which will say that, but you as members, as you do on every item and every topic, can decide you want to pay more for something because of community-based decisions. And it is absolutely right that you as members then weigh that up as to what you feel is the right thing between community and cost, and you do that all the time, and that's politics. I think that I'm going to leave it there as to where we're up to at the moment, but I'm happy if anybody does have any questions about before you want to debate it.
I just want to make a comment because I believe we should, as members of this council, thank the Chief Executive and officers for actually giving us so much information on an ongoing basis on this issue. I'm really grateful for it. I'm sure members are as well. We've had it not only in a daily bulletin from the Chief Executive to all members, but we've also had it through our members' briefings at every stage through this. And all the time this is going on, when officers are committed to working on this, and I know because I've sat in some of the meetings with other officers from other councils, they're all involved in going through this process. We've actually had business as usual as well. When you look at the reports and agenda in here, there's work still going on. We've got some big projects going on across the districts. We've got some big events going on. We're heading towards the Fantastic, and there's loads to come. with the air show going on. Them officers are working so hard behind the scenes, everyone. So I just want to say my appreciation to the Chief Executive and officers on behalf of the Cabinet, but not just on behalf of the Cabinet, but on behalf of all members of this council. So thank you very much, and thanks for the update, Ian. Right, I've moved that report, and I have a seconder, which is Councillor Gary Scott. Any comments from it? I did ask. I didn't make that mistake this time. Excuse me. And I am going to ask. All agreed? Thank you, members. And now we go on to item 11. Cabinet members' items, report of the Assets and Community Safety Portfolio Holder, A4, freehold disposal of redundant office site at Wheelie, pages 115 to 116. And I'm going to go over to Councillor Peter Cox.
Thank you, Deputy Leader, and I'm pleased to introduce this report concerning the proposed freehold disposal of the redundant Wheelie Council Office site. This matter has been under consideration for a number of years, and today's report brings forward a pragmatic and timely recommendation to resolve the futureness of the site in a way that aligns with the Council's priorities and financial responsibilities. As members will recall, the Wheelie offices were identified for disposal as part of the Council's transformation programme agreed in December 2016. Since then, a number of steps have been taken to progress the site's redevelopment, including the appropriation of the land for planning purposes in 2021 and the agreements of heads of terms with the preferred bidder in 2023. However, despite considerable effort, negotiations have reached an impasse due to unresolved legal complexities, and Cabinet resolved in April this year to cease further discussions with the original bidder. This report now sets out a fresh approach, recommending that the site be disposed of via public auction. This method offers a clear and time-bound route to disposal, reduces ongoing holding costs, which are currently around £65,000 per year, and provides a transparent process to demonstrate best consideration. The report also outlines a phased fallback strategy, including open market tender and, if necessary, further Cabinet consideration of alternative options. In reaching this recommendation, the report considers the lessons learned from previous negotiations, the Council's evolving housing delivery achievements, and the practical challenges of redeveloping a rural site. It also weighs the financial, legal and operational implications of each disposal route, ensuring that the Council's duty to secure best value is upheld. And the Cabinet, when we went through this recently, we went through all of those issues and looked at those and came to those and looked at all the different options that there were, and we've come to agreement around the recommendations that are actually set out at pages 116 and 117, and I hope the Cabinet will agree with those that this is the best route forward for us, and I therefore move those recommendations on pages 116 and 117.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. And have I seconded? Yeah, Councillor Gary Scott.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. I would like to formally second the recommendation set out in this report and express my full support for the proposed approach to the disposal of Wheelie Office site. This report represents a clear and well-reasoned case for moving forward with a phased disposal strategy, beginning with a sale via auction. It reflects the reality that, despite best efforts over several years, the original disposal route has proven unworkable due to legal and practical barriers. Continuing down that path would only prolong uncertainty and incur further costs with no guarantee of resolution. The auction route offers a transparent, time-bound process that aligns with our duty to secure best consideration for public assets. It also provides the flexibility to consider alternative offers should they arise, while ensuring that any such proposals meet strict value for money criteria. This is a balanced and pragmatic way to bring closure to a long-standing issue. Importantly, the report also recognises the broad context our process is delivering new council housing elsewhere in the district. the rural nature of the site, and the need to reduce ongoing liabilities. These factors all support the conclusion that a capital receipt, rather than further pursuit of social housing on this site, is now most appropriate outcome. I so second this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Is there any comments? Councillor Honeywood.
Thank you. I have a couple of points. Firstly, obviously this has gone on for quite some time now. So is there an end date envisaged? It talks about going to auction. Do you have I wouldn't hold you to the date, obviously, but maybe to the month when you're expecting this to happen? And I do have a second question.
Councillor Cox.
Can I refer to ask Jenny Wilkinson to actually answer that question in terms of the process to lead us to auction?
I'll just find the place in the report, but there is a timeline within there. So the recommendation would be to advertise it in an auction a month prior to it actually going to auction to get good coverage. And we're hopeful that it would actually go to the auction in October this year.
Okay. Thanks very much for that. And the second question is slightly off at a tangent from that. In the report, it refers to the housing strategy. Now, over the last, over a year, we've been asking about the housing strategy, which isn't what we've been told that we're going to be getting a new housing strategy. When is that likely to come forward to be looked at? Because obviously the housing strategy and the budget strategy don't tie up, and that should have been dealt with, well, over a year ago, in my view. So I wondered where we are with the housing strategy.
Councillor Andy Baker, are you happy to answer that?
I can answer some of it. Obviously, I would have preferred it coming, a new strategy or a revised strategy coming forward a lot quicker. We didn't have LGR coming forward when we were looking at it. I'm hopeful, and I'm going to cross my fingers, that we will be receiving a draft very soon to look at. Then a report will be coming to Cabinet, I'm hopeful, in September for it to go out to consultation, which will then give everybody a chance to have a look. And I think, and I'm doing this from memory, so please forgive me if I get this completely wrong. So I'll be asking Cabinet to approve consultation in September. It will go out to consultation for 6 weeks. That will then come back in beginning of November. We will then look at all the consultee responses and look at those and take them into consideration. And then the final report to Cabinet will be in December for recommendation to go to full council in January. Slightly longer than, like I say, I anticipated it would take, but I want to make sure we get it right. So the draft is due very, very soon, if not with us already. And in fact, it's just been received, so I haven't seen that yet. So I hope that covers what you asked in regard to that. Thank you.
That's fine. Thanks very much.
You happy with that? I'd just like to say, when we're talking about to members, when we're talking about housing policy and all what's been going on, when you look at, and I think there's a congratulations actually, and for all the hard work for all the officers involved, including the portfolio holder, Councillor Andy Baker, the amount of documents and policy documents that they've had to go through over the last few months is in double figures, high in double figures. So I think not only are they, again, dealing with business as usual, they're actually dealing with lots and lots of new policy documents which are just flooding in all the time, and they're doing a really good job of keeping on top of that. So I'd just like to mention that so members are aware of the workload within that department. Thank you. Thank you, members. We now go on to item 12, and I'll put my glasses on, I took them off. Cabinet members' items, report of the Corporate Finance and Governance Portfolio Holder, A5, overview of the financial outturn 2024-25 and proposed, yeah, so there we are, that's item 12, and I'm going to move this, and I'm going to read a statement out which has been prepared by the leader in his absence for where we are with finance, because as we know, it's the leader's, it comes under his policy responsibilities. So, as set out within the report under approved delegation, I agreed the detailed outturn position for 2024/25 back on the 27th of June 2025. This was just ahead of publishing the even more detailed statement of accounts for 2024/25, which are available on the Council's website. In terms of the statement of accounts, we had a good discussion at the recent Resources and Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, where a copy of the Council's balance sheet was asked for. I understand this has now been circulated. If you've read the balance sheet and its accompanying notes, I think we can all agree that public sector finance is a complicated business, but one we are always striving to be as transparent as we can, and we always welcome any associated questions. Now, rather than potentially taking you through the detailed outturn position and the balance sheet line by line, and I'm sure I would get a kick under the table by the person next to me if I did go right through all of that, I would instead like to highlight a few salient points around where we are, both financially and set out against local government reorganisation. Taking the outturn position for 2024/25 first, we have achieved a favourable variance of 5.417 million. Many of the items that contribute to this figure broadly reflect issues that we have considered earlier in the year, so no surprises on that front. A variance of over 5 million unsurprisingly raises the question about why then does our financial forecast set out a deficit position over the coming years. As we have said before, some of these variances may be one-off or partly one-off in nature, and we therefore need to be prudent looking forward. That is not to say that we will not review the forecast in light of the outturn position, as clearly if some of the items are able to be translated into ongoing items, then we will reflect these within the budget wherever we can. In terms of looking forward, we are faced with one particular financial challenge that has two main angles to it, and that is the government's current review of funding provided to local authorities. The government's current approach is set out against the Fair Funding Review, alongside a reset of the business rates retention system. Taking the Fair Funding Review first, it is proposed that this will be made up of three distinct parts. 1, an assessment of relative need, 2, an area cost adjustment, and 3, a resources assessment. The government also proposed to do away with the new homes bonus grant, with the money effectively added to the pot that will be distributed via the resulting formula, emerging from the three key elements I've just mentioned. Then we have the business rates reset, which will revisit the existing rates retention system that has been in place since April 2013. A lot more detail is available online, so it's worth a read if you get the chance and you've got the time to do so. Perhaps a late night reading session. What does this all mean for us? The honest answer is we don't yet know, and I'm sure we won't get a sense of the impact on us until a lot later in the year when we start to finalise our budget proposals during November and December. I do think there is a positive point hidden in the fair funding review, and that is we are likely to see a shift within the formula to authorities like tendering based on the relative needs of the equation. However, before we get too excited and in managing expectations, it could be we end up with a relatively bigger piece of the cake, but then find out that the cake is not as big as we thought it would be. We will be providing updates during the year as part of our financial performance reports. So as we find out more, I will share it with everyone as timely as possible. In terms of the forecast looking ahead to 2026-27 and beyond, we are obliged to produce financial forecasts spanning at least 4 years. We have always tried to look beyond that as part of our longer-term financial planning approach. However, the emergence of LGR, Local Government Reorganisation, brings about a focus on the next 2 years until a new unitary council is established, which, based on current timescales, could be as early as April 2028. As discussed earlier, at earlier meetings of full council, we will need to continue to ensure that Tendring District is in the best possible position and that members and officers will continue to deliver this council's best value and other statutory duties for the benefit of its residents, businesses and communities every day that it exists. In translating this commitment down a level and taking into account changes to the local government funding system I have just mentioned, we will need to balance the protection of services, the completion of existing projects, which include delivering against our highlight priorities, and not underestimating the work required to deliver local government reorganisation itself. All of that has got to be set against the continuing sound financial footing, which starts with how can we maximise the benefits from the allocation of the 5.417 million variance from 2024-25. I think we can all agree that we need to protect our ongoing base revenue budget, as that is what underpins the delivery of services, and then use our one-off money as a buffer to respond to immediate issues and challenges, with this latter point being reflected in the recommendations I've made to Cabinet, which are set out within Section 1 of Appendix A. As part of the broader finance approach, we will need to clearly articulate our activities and actions across the broad range of things we do, including staying ahead of potentially other budget pressures where we can, and responding to issues as timely as possible. Together with my Cabinet colleagues and officers, we will build upon the approach I have just outlined over the coming weeks and months and provide further details to members in the second half of the year. With reference to a point I made earlier, by retaining strong and sound approach to our finances, we can ensure that the District of Tendring is in the best possible position, and we can continue to deliver this council's best value and statutory duties for the benefit of its residents, businesses and communities. Assuming LGR, Local Government Reorganisation happens, and within the timescales currently expected, Tendring District Council may only have 2 budget cycles left. Via the associated processes in the interim period, we will continue to aim to resist any reductions to our services as far as the government's financial settlements and business rates reset allows, along with continuing our work to ensure that the HRA is in the most financially sustainable position as possible for our current and future tenants. With that in mind, members, I'd like to move recommendations on pages 128 and 129. And can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Barry.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Leader, and I concur with the words that you've read out on behalf of the leader. He's given a very comprehensive overview of our financial position and a clear explanation and outline of some of the difficult financial issues that we face. In seconding this, I think it's worth further highlighting and reinforcing a couple of important points that you've just made. Firstly, the outturn variance from 2024-25 does give us a fair degree of flexibility and supports the overall approach you've outlined for us over the next couple of years before a new unitary council is in place from as early as 1st of April 2028. I'd just like to say as well that in our time in office, I think we have clearly demonstrated that we can successfully deal with local issues and challenges and take pragmatic decisions, such as the recent ones relating to the waste contract and Careline. Having said that, what is potentially more challenging down the line are the wider risks and non-local issues, such as those associated with the government's fair funding review and the business rates reset. The important point that you've made, we've heard a lot about cakes and slices and not knowing what size they are, but at the end of the day, it will actually be down to pounds, shillings and pence and how much money the council receives in 26-27 and 27-28. Against this rather uncertain background, I think we need to continue to do all we can to avoid any reduction in the services we provide and be clear on our priorities in respect of both spending and savings from now right through until the end of March 2028. This will give us a clear and transparent plan set against not only the projects we're already delivering, but against the changing economic and financial landscape that will form part of the development of our financial forecast over the coming months and years. Having said all that, I'm happy to endorse this report and second acceptance of the recommendations A to G on pages 128 and 129. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. And I'm just going to hand over to the Chief Executive, Mr. Ian Davidson, for a few comments.
Just a couple of quick very things. It's page 137, I think, that where you got the proposed allocation of the general fund outturn variance. Those are very much things where we talk about putting us in the best possible place. Going into a unitary with whatever side, with 3 districts in the county or 5 districts in the county or 4 districts, coastal protection works are going to be really important, and actually getting as much work as we can done in order to give some of that long-term sustainability is really important, and it is a focus for us in a wider area that may not be there'll be less of a focus because adult social care and children's services, we've had a series or a report done which is looking at some of the key projects which we need to do, and that's that funding to there. Homelessness costs, we know that they are ever rising, and actually that's how do we bring those down. We've already seen a reduction as a result of one facility, looking at how we can achieve those further. So you can see why the logic of those are in there, because it is about addressing our very key things and utilising that variance, both for addressing our key challenges and not being just about being LGR, but about being the day job, our business as usual, but also about making sure that Thames are in the best possible place. The waste and recycling contract, collection and street cleaning contract arrangements, again, making sure we have provision for there, because we know that whatever the outcome, it's going to be more expensive than it is now. So therefore, again, the provision in there. And the last one, obviously, is the supporting the delivery of the savings efficiency plans and our wider corporate priorities. So this is putting the business as usual and us in the best possible place together, whilst, as you rightly said, Councillor Henderson, the distraction's the wrong word, but the amount of work which is going in. And I would just say that will end up being every single officer, because obviously ultimately we won't exist, so therefore they will be being transferred or whatever happens by TUPE into the new organisation. So it will affect every single officer. So we do need to keep that focus on our residents and on our work, and page 137 has tried to capture that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And I just want to make another point about when you look at this, the financial management of where this council lives, and you know how we're the sustainable financial position we're in. I think all credit again should go to our corporate director for finance, Richard Barrett, and his team for managing our finance so well and getting us in a really good position before we even go into local government reorganisation. And I just want to make a comment about our leader, Councillor Mark Stevenson, because he's worked really hard with the team as well to make sure there's he's overseen everything what's going on and supported those actions.
If I may just lead it, I actually want to thank members as well, because that sustainability of good finance has been over many years. That's the previous administration, so I'm recognising both the previous administration and this administration, and how important you as members collectively have always been very collegiate in looking at it, you know, been rigorous around that, but that is really important. And so that's the existing administration, so I'm sort of saying that as being politically neutral and as your returning officer as well, but also saying is that we appreciate as officers the way in which members approach budget setting and approach the support you give, and the way we see it through, whether it be at cabinet, at council, at scrutiny, and at audit, and in terms of the importance of that collegiate working from all of you, both past and present administrations. And I know probably at least one of them sitting online watching this, so I recognise that as well.
And thank you for those comments, Mr. Davidson. And we all appreciate those comments as members as well. The item's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Mick Barry. Oh, sorry, Paul. Sorry, I missed that. Go on.
No, that's fine. I've got nothing to add, thanks.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. All agreed? Thank you, members. I now go to item 13, Cabinet Members' items, report of the Economic Growth, Regeneration and Tourism Portfolio Holder, A6, acceptance of funding from the Plan for Neighbourhoods programme, which was the plan for the towns, pages 139 to 158. And I'll move this. Can I have a seconder? I'll move this first and then I'll call for a seconder. By moving it, the Cabinet previously considered reports on Clacton-on-Sea's £20 million allocation under the long-term plan for towns spreading over 10 years. Although the programme was paused during the 2024 general election, the government relaunched it in March this year as the Plan for Neighbourhoods, reaffirming the original funding commitment. The programme continues to focus on community-led regeneration and sustainable economic growth. It remains overseen by the Clacton Town Board, which includes me and Councillor Stevenson. It is chaired independently and has board members from the public, private and voluntary sector. The board has been running for 1 year now, and the government has just approved the board's governance plan and are happy with the membership and the governance process we've put in place. The council retains its role as the accountable body, ensuring proper governance and financial management. The town board must now develop a regeneration plan, comprising, I've got reorganisation on the brain, regeneration plan comprising a 10-year vision and a 4-year investment plan, in line with the government's guidance issued at the end of last month. To support this work, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government are providing an additional £200,000 in capacity funding for 2025-26, bringing the total capacity budget to £450,000. This budget for this was approved by the Clacton Town Board in March and now requires the council's approval. So you'll see the recommendation which I'm moving, which is on page 141 in detail, asking for us to approve that in future. And I call on a seconder, Councillor Adrian Smith.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Sorry. The Plan for Neighbourhoods funding builds on previous government support through the Levelling Up Fund and the Community Regeneration Partnership. Together, these investments are set to make a meaningful and lasting difference to Clacton's future. The Clacton Regeneration Plan, led by the Town Board, will provide a strategic and operational framework for the next decade and beyond. It will guide efforts not only in how we can spend the Plan for Neighbourhoods funding, but also how we could attract other investment from private and public sources, and this could include the new mayor. The plan will be prepared in consultation with the local community, residents and businesses, also key stakeholders who are getting the opportunity to outline their priorities. I thereby second the motion that we agree the recommendations in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any comments? Right. We have a mover and a seconder. All agreed? Thank you very much. We now go on to item 14. Cabinet members item, report of the Housing and Planning Portfolio Holder A7, adoption of 5 conservation area appraisal and management plans, which can be found on pages 159 to 452. And before I call on the mover, again, I reiterate them comments I made before. When you see the amount of work which has gone into this and everything else which is going on in that department, you know, they should be congratulated for getting as far as they have. Councillor Andy Baker.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. I'm delighted to introduce this report, requesting that Cabinet adopt a further 5 conservation area appraisals for the 5 areas of Ardley, Bradfield, Great Holland, Ramsey and Tendring Village. The appraisals themselves are shown from pages 171 to 436 of the agenda, quite a long read, but again, very interesting nevertheless. As I've stated more than one occasion, one of the aims of the Council's heritage strategy adopted in April 2020 was to update the Council's area appraisals, and much work has been done since then to bring these updated appraisals forward. As you recall, Cabinet has already adopted the first 13, therefore these further 5 will take the total adopted to 18. The final 2 areas are due to be reconsulted upon soon, and I hope to bring those reports to Cabinet hopefully by the end of this calendar year. As you've mentioned, Deputy Leader, a lot of work has gone into producing these appraisals, and I would like to record Cabinet's thanks to all those who have undertaken that work, as well as those who responded to the consultations. Having these appraisals in place will help in the preparation of our new revised local plan, and also hopefully assist in attracting external funding for heritage-related activity in the district. I don't intend to say anything further, it's all outlined in the very comprehensive report. The recommendations on pages 159 to 160, and I commend them to Cabinet. Thank you.
And have I got a seconder? Councillor Gary Scott.
Yes, Chairman, Deputy Leader, I'm glad you second this report. It's a very good report, and it highlights the importance of heritage preservation in our district. So I'll second that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Any comments? Right, we have a mover and a seconder. All agreed? Thank you, members. We now go to item 15, Cabinet members item, report of the Housing and Planning Portfolio Holder, consideration and adoption of a housing no access policy, pages 453 to 468. And again, I go to Councillor Andy Baker.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. I introduce yet another housing policy, this time a housing no access policy which formalises the work already taken within the housing service. The policy sets out this council's overall approach to gaining access to council homes to enable the council as a social housing landlord to fulfil its statutory and regulatory duties. It defines when the council will need to access our tenants' homes and what the process is should access be denied. There are many reasons as to why the council will require access to its homes, including, but not limited to, annual gas safety checks, electrical checks, repairs or essential maintenance. In the majority of cases, access is achievable. However, there are a number where access proves difficult, sometimes by the refusal of the tenants to allow access. This policy aims to show the key principles in the way that the council handles gaining access to homes. I do not intend to go through them. They're shown in the report on page 457, and also the potential consequences and risk resulting from access being refused. I do not intend to say anything more about the policy. It's shown as Appendix A to this report from page 459. The recommendations are shown on page 453, and I commend them to Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a seconder, Councillor Peter Cox.
Thank you, Deputy Leader, and I agree with the comments made by Councillor Baker. This is a well-written policy which looks at all the reasons why the council needs to gain access to residents' homes. This policy serves not only to protect the council, but also our tenants and leaseholders and the wider public. And I totally agree with the recommendations and that policy should be adopted. Thank you.
Any comments? No comments. So we have a mover and a seconder. Are we agreed? Agreed. Thank you, members. We now go to item 16, management team items. There are no matters to report. Then go to the date of next scheduled meeting. The next scheduled meeting of the Cabinet is to be held in the committee room within the Town Hall here in Clacton-on-Sea at 10:30 a.m. on Friday the 12th of September. And before I close the meeting, can I just thank all of those who have attended, thank my Cabinet, thank officers for all their good work, and also thank the opposition leaders, Councillor Paul Honeywood and Councillor Jane Chapman, for coming along representing their groups as opposition leaders. And I hope you all have an enjoyable weekend. Thank you very much, and I'll close the meeting. Thank you.